Hey, it's Rachel Cooke, your modern mentor. I'm the founder of Lead Above Noise, where we help leaders rethink how the work gets done so that it becomes regenerative, so that the ways in which we're working don't just drive results, but they also amplify our engagement and well-being. If your organization is ready to build new ways into the work rather than just bolting programs onto it, learn more today about my speaking, workshops, and coaching programs at leadabovenoise.com. Okay, so today I've got a good one for you. It's a conversation that I was privileged to have with Dr. Sarabeth Bickerton. And in this conversation, we covered some serious ground. She believes that we're in what she describes as an invisible epidemic of professional identity confusion. And she offers practical advice on how we can do better for ourselves. We discuss the difference between workplace belonging and career belonging. And we touch on the 5 steps that we can all take to find career belonging for ourselves, which I think we all deserve. I really enjoyed this conversation, and I hope you do as well. So, Sarabeth Bickerton, professional identity expert, and most recently, author of the new book, Seen, Known, Valued: How to Achieve Career Belonging in a Workforce Obsessed with Fit. What an amazing title. I cannot wait to dive in, and welcome to the Modern Mentor podcast.
Oh my gosh, I am thrilled to be here. This is going to be a great conversation.
It sure is. If I think so and you think so, it's already fabulous, right?
Yes.
We are going to start with your title, which is Professional Identity Expert. What is that?
I know. It's something that we really need to be more aware of is the bottom line here. Professional identity is how we see ourselves in our work. It's the combination of our ethics, our values, our skills, our beliefs, our behaviors. All of that culminates into who are you beside your job title in your work? What do you name yourself? And when you have that clarity of your professional identity, you're better able to communicate your value and relate to audiences because you are so much more than a job title. And that's the predicament we're in the workforce. People are oversubscribed with being named by somebody else. So I have expertise in this, which means I'm blending personal branding, career development, and workforce innovation together. That's the intersection of this idea of professional identity.
That is a fabulous kind of little place between 3 circles. I imagine it doesn't feel that crowded. Am I right? That sounds like a really unique place to be hanging.
It is unique in the sense that it's not well known, but when you actually dive into the literature, professional identity formation is a whole body of work, and it's mostly directed to medical schools and law schools. They have requirements around professional identity formation in their curriculum, but the rest of the workforce, it's absent. So we have a whole divide of people that are learning about their professional identity and the rest of us who aren't.
That's really interesting. And so it's a really nice, I would say, transition into the first question I would love to ask you about, which is your distinguishing belonging from fit. And I imagine that has a lot to do with this tiny little intersection you sit in. Can you help us unpack that a little bit? What does that mean?
Yes. So let me rewind just slightly. So I wrote a book 5 years ago called More Than My Title. And the problem I was solving with that book is so many people in the workforce talk about wearing a lot of hats and struggling to answer that "what do you do" question because they're like, I'm more than just one thing. And what I was able to uncover is that people can either be singular in their work, meaning they have one identity. They can be multiple. They have like the jack of all trades. They wear a lot of hats identities. But the third bucket of professional identity is hybridity. You can be a combination that works at the intersection, that Venn diagram. And when you can acknowledge your hybridity, that helps explain why you have so many different identities in your work and why it's a struggle because you don't fit one box. So that was my first book. And what happened that I didn't anticipate is people said, oh my gosh, Sarabeth, you've helped me name and put language to something that's plagued me. I didn't even know this was a problem. And now that I know who I am in my work, where do I fit? I need to figure out my career fit. I don't know where I fit in the workforce. And this fit kept being like the word du jour. And I was like, I struggle with that too. But what I realized when you look deeper into what career fit means, it's a whole industry around matching you. It's what others expect you to be and tell you, in order to do this role, you need to fit these boxes. And yet all of the people I've been interviewing, kind of that qualitative research side, say, I don't want to fit a box. I want to be seen. I want to be understood. I want to be valued for who I am, not just what I do. And I was like, we've got a contradiction of what people are saying versus what they're intending. And when you look at research on belonging, the core pillars are feeling accepted for who you are, feeling seen, known, and valued no matter what. And I was like, we have got a mismatch of saying we want fit, but really we're longing to belong in our careers. And so that opened up the new book topic of how do we achieve career belonging in a workforce obsessed with fit? And it's really an empowering way to reframe your career belongs to you and it's reflected by others and it's part of something greater. And this is the new conversation and construct we need to change our minds around.
That's awesome. And I'm looking forward to diving a little bit deeper into this. If you don't mind for a minute, I'm going to try to step into the mindset of what I imagine some of my listeners might be thinking right now.
Yeah.
And I'm curious, how do you sort of overlay this idea of belonging and acceptance and bringing people in for who they are with the reality of we have a job and the job has responsibilities and we need certain things to get done? Help me understand kind of how those pieces fit together.
Yeah. So you're hitting all the layers of I'm an academic and a researcher. I have a PhD. So I'm always trying to parse what are we really saying? What is the big question? So if you look at the idea of belonging and also the idea of identity, because I'm in those spaces, they are multifaceted. There are so many sides of our identity. It's not just who we are in our work. It's our social, personal, race, demographics, all of that. And same for belonging. There are different types of belonging. You can belong to a team, belong to a company, belong to a workplace, and your career has belonging for yourself. And so that's the first distinction because we kind of conflate all these types of belonging together. There is a time and a place where you want to figure out, do I belong on this team? Is this the right company for me? But also when we go through job transitions or career transitions, we lose a job, we lose our sense of self. Suddenly we go, well, what's my career now? I'm not on that quote unquote path anymore. Or because I'm not working with that employer, I don't know what industry I'm in or how to move forward next. And this is when people feel really lost and insecure. So I talk about career belonging is what your career is to you, and you need to define that. It's all these internal metrics of success and fulfillment and purpose. But if you're looking for workplace belonging, am I with the right company? Those need to be talked about differently. I'll just sum this up with, they do connect, like you want to feel you're in the work you're supposed to be doing with the team and the company and the culture you're supposed to be part of. So all those layers of belonging should be united, but we need to talk about them and advocate for them and learn about them differently.
Yeah, that's really lovely. That's lovely. So how would you suggest, because I want to make sure we stay super grounded in kind of utility and action. Let's just start with, where should somebody start? If somebody's sitting here going, this sounds delicious, like a big, lovely rainbow on a unicorn, where do I begin? Besides obviously reading the book. Yeah,
totally. Yeah. Read the book. This is ultimately why I titled the book what it is, Seen, Known, Valued. So let's back into, there's 3 career power questions that I've really heard that people need to ask themselves and nobody really is. So the questions are these. 1, who are you in your work beside your title? 2, what does that mean? And 3, how do you want to feel seen, known, and valued for that? If you pause and start to reflect on those questions, they're really big. And they're really important, and most of us can't answer them right away. This is the beginning of the work. It's learning to understand yourself and have this self-reflection. Then the big parts of this, how do you want to feel seen, known, and valued is the cornerstone of everything. Because again, Rachel, if I asked you right now, how do you want to be seen in your work? What does it look like to be known by others? How do you want to be valued by something greater than yourself, than what you say you're doing? How would you answer that? Have you ever thought about those questions?
I have not thought about those questions at all, and I am intrigued by them. And I'll be honest, I don't know that I would know how to answer them.
Yeah.
And I'm curious, can you give us a little bit of, I don't know, do you have an avatar in your mind of someone you've asked these to who's kind of answered them thoughtfully? That would be really helpful.
Well, yes and no. Why this gets so big and why it feels a little overwhelming is because This is the type of work that I reflect on and I ask my clients to do because it's philosophical and introspective, and it really helps you understand what you're searching for, what you're striving for, and why you don't feel recognized and valued and you're invisible in ways that are uncomfortable, but you've never expressed it. So the cornerstone of the book, and I know I'm using that word a lot, but the main framework in my new book is called the Career Belonging Matrix. And this tool is a 3x3 grid. It's really simple looking. And the grid has 3 rows, seen, known, and valued, and then 3 columns, by yourself, by others, and by something greater than you. And you go box by box and start to answer, how do you see yourself in your work? How do you want others to see you? How do you feel seen by something greater? And what this does is it checks in with, where do you have a sense of yourself already? Where are you more aware? And where are your gaps? Where do you feel lost or confused or unsure? And that's the beginning of this work, is to touch in with yourself and then go deeper when you realize, I don't have the answer because I've never asked these before. Ultimately, my dream is for people to get to 3, I call them your SKV statements, your seen, known, valued statements. So you have like a mantra. So to go to an example, because you asked for that, I'll use myself. I see myself as a professional identity expert. And I feel known by others when they reach out to me because of this talent and expertise. They send me articles or ideas or information around how professional identity and hybridity is spreading or not being activated in the workforce. And I feel part of something greater than myself when I'm invited to things that celebrate my expertise or expand on this topic of the future of work. And when I'm not being seen, known, and valued in those ways, people send me things that are irrelevant or show that they're discounting my expertise. It shows me there's a mismatch. Either I'm not promoting myself properly, my message is confusing and people aren't interpreting it right, or it shows me they really don't understand me and they're not the right partner for me or the right collaborator. So having this template of my SKV statements has really helped me solidify, in a way, my personal brand, and also made me feel much more empowered in what my career is and what I'm striving for. Because without it, I would just kind of be going with, well, what are people telling me? What does the market want? What am I trying to fit? And this has completely changed the equation.
Okay, that's great. Thank you. I'm curious, if you don't mind my pushing a little bit, because what you just shared, it sounds really compelling. So it sounds like seen is how you see yourself, kind of what you identify as your uniqueness, your contribution to something. Known sounds like indicators that is working, right? Like, I see myself this way. Known is other people are giving me signals that they see me that way, which is a great thing. And then valued is when you feel not just recognized, but invited, celebrated, not just, hey, I see you, I'm going to share something with you, but hey, I see you and I need you to come contribute that thing, right? It sounds like a really beautiful formula. I'm curious how it might apply to somebody who maybe doesn't do something as inherently singular or as inherently unique as what you do. So a marketing manager at a company, a customer service representative, a nurse, whatever it might be. I'm imagining somebody in a more traditional job thinking, that sounds great for you, Sarabeth, but how does that apply to me? I'm curious just what you would offer. And then I want to talk about what we do with it. Oh, yes.
Yeah. So this comes to my sticking point, the pain point I hear all the time of this generic vanilla language we use about ourselves. So yes, many of us are in labels like strategic marketing director and head of sales. But what do those titles mean, right? If you ask someone to define themselves without a job title, they go, oh, well, I kind of like am a polisher of diamonds in the rough, or I'm the moment architect. Like, that's what I work with people to get more specific and more unique. But most people I work with are hybrids. They're like, I'm a combination of these 5 and 25 things, and I don't know how to say it nicely. So my basic beginning point is working with people to say, I work at the intersection of X, Y, and Z. That starts to build your formula of that unique space in the Venn diagram. And then you can start to tap into, well, how do you want to be seen, known, and valued for that? What does it look like? And there's a variety of ways to brainstorm and talk about examples and artifacts and processes, like things you've created. I talk about your hybridity in action. But really, whether you work for a company and you have this generic job title, or whether you work for yourself and you say, I'm a coach, I'm an entrepreneur, I'm a strategist, etc., We need to get to more granular layers of specificity that help hit your unique value and start to build more of that empathy, more of that resonance with your audience. So they go, oh, she's not just a coach. She is this kind of coach and in this way. And so I see her or know her for those attributes. And then you start to stand out. And this is the most important part, Rachel, you become sticky. When people remember you and that differentiator, you become referable, you're memorable. Suddenly, people are attracted to you because they understand that uniqueness.
Okay, that's really helpful. So what I'm picturing now is I'm thinking about nurses, right? Just as an example. And I'm thinking there may be 10 nurses on a ward and they may all have the same job title, the same job function. But once you get to know them, you know that there are a couple who are particularly outstanding at making fast, hard decisions under pressure. There are a couple who are particularly outstanding about really knowing how to connect with families in moments of crisis.
Yeah.
And so it's about, is that a thing that they want to be known for? And then are the staff around them, the doctors, the administrators, kind of calling on them in those moments appropriately? That might be how I think about translating it.
Yes. A quick story, because I obviously need to be a little more clear on messages here. I was working with a team at a university one time, and there was like 25 people. It was the beginning of a big professional development day. And instead of traditional icebreaker or just going around the room saying, do your intro, your name, your job title, your department, I added a layer and said, and what would you call yourself beyond your job title? And so as they went around the room, and I put them on the spot, we didn't have the time to do all of the warm up, but even their inkling of what they would answer in that moment was so insightful. And so we go around the room, and one, like the head of a department was like, oh, I'm actually the empathy activator. And sort of it reframes his whole sense of himself. And now it's publicly communicated so everybody else heard that. And they go, oh yeah, John really is great at empathy. That's why we go to him. So having these other little, whether you call it a tagline, a phrase, I call it your professional identity, it helps to take break that wall of this is my formal identity, but this is really who I am. And now that builds stronger connection, authenticity, recognition, etc.
That's really helpful. Thank you. And I imagine that there is something powerful about saying it out loud, because either it gives everyone in the room the opportunity to sort of validate and acknowledge and make sure they are using that person in that way, or to stop and say, really? Because that's actually not how we experience you. And I imagine that's also really helpful data to receive, right?
Exactly. Yeah, because you don't know those perceptions. A homework assignment I give my clients all the time, and they're always surprised and delighted by this activity. They have to go interview somebody about themselves and specifically about their professional identity, how this person sees them. And the tricky part of this activity is staying in the lane of identity language, because people were so trained. If I were to ask you right now, Rachel, how do you see me in my work? You'd probably say, oh, you're nice and personable and you're a high achiever. And that's all descriptive, like personality and performance language, but that has nothing to do with nouns and identity. So I give my clients a set of questions and I'm like, stay within these questions. And if people are veering off, like bring them back to identity words. And this one client came back, he's like, the person I interviewed told me they see me as Mr. Rogers on the team. I'm this like friendly go-to. And I at first I was like, is that good or bad? And he's like, I felt so good hearing that information about myself because I didn't know my team saw me that way. And it made me realize they do get me the way I want to be seen. And so I'm getting chills on this one. He just really felt so valued. He felt so understood. It like changed his energy and it built his self-confidence. And that's what we need more of. We need to build these connection points, because I think it's like 1 in 4 people, I might have my stats a little off, maybe it's 1 in 3, are feeling recognized once a week in their work. There was something by Gallup, and it's like, we're not getting enough of this. People really feel invisible in ways in their work.
So something that you are not saying explicitly, and I don't want to put words in your mouth, but what I think I'm hearing you say, or at least point at, is that recognition is not only a passive thing that happens to us. When we are clear and intentional and articulate about our identity and how we want to be seen, known, and valued, and we express that out loud, it makes our teammates, our leaders, the people around us more likely to then give us that recognition and validation because we've helped them know what to look for. I could imagine that being a really nice bonus from doing this inner work.
Yeah, you hit the nail on the head. We make assumptions that people get us, that people should just know who we are, but we're not actively talking about ourselves the way we want to be seen. The mantra I have in the book is, when you see yourself, others will see you the way you want to be seen. That is the premise. Quick story on that. Before I was as deep into all this research and writing the books, I was working in higher ed. I was this innovation director. And one day my boss and I were in the hallway and two people were walking up to us because that was her next meeting. And she quickly said, "Oh, hey, Frank and Larry, I want to introduce you to Sarabeth. She's our innovation director, but really she's this hybrid who works with being an artist, educator, researcher, and designer. And that's why we love her in this job." And I was aghast. I was like, did I just hear her do that intro? Like, the way she introduced me completely reflected the language I'd started saying about myself, because I felt my hybridity was a critical piece I needed to uncover for other people. And I'd been using it more often. And I was doing such a good job of it that my boss had remembered and used it for me on behalf of me. And it really made me feel like she gets me. That was huge.
So I love that story that you just shared. And it's funny because I, not having had access to your book until very recently, I find that one of my superpowers, at least I think, and I have been told, is that I'm really, really good at introducing people. And it is a thing that I am extremely thoughtful about. I spend more time than I care to admit sending emails to two people and putting them in touch so that it is very clear kind of what my intent is, what I see in each of them that I think the other will appreciate. And I think that is it's something I do because it's something I so appreciate when somebody does it for me. And I think what you're saying is it is a form of recognition, which I've never thought to label it as, but I think that's really powerful. And I think that's something we can all be just doing more of and being more intentional about. So thank you for sharing that.
Yeah, I love that you have that superpower because it is really a talent. And it's making me realize on the flip side, how many times I've been introduced or gotten an email that was off, right? Like where people said something that was like, it was close, but not great. And then you feel like, what is this person's perceptions of me really? And am I able to correct or course correct? It puts you in a different category when it doesn't go well.
Totally fair. Let's move on a little bit. I would love to get your thoughts on once somebody has started to do the work, and I already have a collection of notes I've taken here on just the specific tangible things that we can all go do. We can pick up your book. We can play with that 3x3 matrix. We can answer that question, who are you beyond the title? And I love the idea of interviewing someone about yourself. I think this is a beautiful blend of strategies we can deploy to sort of clarify for ourselves. But then what can we do with that? How do we use some of that self-reflection and insight to actually drive our own sense of belonging in the workplace?
Well, then it becomes a strategy that's custom for you. So what are you trying to achieve? Are you trying to build your reputation or shift your positioning within a company or a team? You need to work with your manager, talk about it during one-on-ones. Put it into your performance reviews. Talk about, yes, these are the KPIs, OKRs that I'm achieving for the company, and it's connected to my role, but also here's how I want to feel seen and valued within the work I'm doing. Maybe you add an extra part of the performance evaluation or encourage the culture of your company to start recognizing people differently, hosting a lunch and learn, doing this as some professional development activities. Make it something you all explore collectively, because this is an identity-based career retention, workplace retention strategy too. People will start to perform better and be more engaged when they feel more connected and valued for who they are, not just what they do. Because at the end of the day, we're more than a set of skills. We are not just robots doing jobs. We are people. And this whole idea of work is human and your whole self, I've got some controversial thoughts on the whole self stuff. I think there are parts of you that should show up at work and parts that don't belong at work. But the whole self kind of is a trendy topic. So that's the workplace side of showing up with your SKV statements and using them. But if you're an entrepreneur or a thought leader, or you're in the gig economy, how are you building your digital presence? What is your LinkedIn saying about you? What is your bio? What are those headlines on your website? The taglines you're using repeatedly to build that brand consistency. So this identity comes before resume. Identity is the building block before any branding. Once you have this set of knowledge and assets about you, then you bring it into the world strategically and in ways that reflect what you need.
Okay. That's amazing. And what I'm taking, the nugget that I'm pulling out of what you just said is, and it's funny, I will make this about me for just a second because, I like to be seen. The work that I do with organizations, it lives in this realm of what I call work design, which is very much kind of the counterpoint to organization design, right? So we think about designing the organization and we're thinking about like structures and cultures and these big kind of amorphous things that very few people have the power to touch. And I work with organizations to empower their leaders to actually make shifts in how the work happens such that results, engagement, and well-being all actually kind of fuel and fortify each other. And I talk about it in terms of we have to infuse these strategies into the work in service of building results versus bolting them on top of as a separate thing. And what you just said a minute ago was that when people experience belonging, when we feel seen and known, it doesn't just feel good. We actually perform better, right? And so I think that there is an imperative for both individuals to do this work in order to enhance and amplify their own performance, and equally for organizations to support and encourage people to do this work and to sort of ask the questions and take it in. Because when we see people, when we value them as they want to be seen and known, they are going to perform better. And so there is a business case in here. And I just think it's really important for people to hear that and recognize this is not like a floofy thing to do, on a summer Friday necessarily. Like there's a real business purpose behind this work. So I love that you were able to connect that.
Thank you. Yeah, it's so much about how do we help people thrive and flourish in work and life. And we forget some of the basics, and being seen, known, and valued are the basics.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. Okay. So my last official question is just a really practical one for organizational leaders, for leaders, managers, team leaders. What's something you want them to take away from this conversation? What's something they can go ahead and implement?
Yes. It's first of all, just the awareness and understanding that professional identity is part of the equation of your talent pool, your workforce. And it begins at the recruiting and hiring phase all the way through retention and development. And so this isn't, like you said, it's not bolted on. This is integral to what you're doing. It's part of culture, and it should be policy and practice too. When you start to embed, how are we talking about who people are at work? Not just what the work is, what the outcomes and achievements are. What are your systems for helping people feel valued and recognized, and not just through compensation and not just through tokenism, right? Of like employee of the month. And the way you get at this isn't by inventing something out of thin air, like, oh, other companies do it this way. Start by asking people what they want and what feels good to each individual. Because Sally might like being recognized as employee of the month. That feels good to her to have a company celebration. But over here, John might really just like a little handwritten note or a conversation with someone where they just call him out on the side. And we don't know what's right for everyone, and we don't want to do one size fits all, because that's where we run into kind of standardizing and making this the best for average. And where it really comes is, how do you empower the employees or the individuals to advocate and express what they need in order to feel seen, known, and valued? Because it starts with the person. And if the person can't express it, then that's the beginning of the work, is helping give them time, tools, and education around, how do you see yourself? What does that mean? And how do you want to feel seen, known, and valued? Hence the 3 career power questions.
That's awesome.
The bigger point of this too, Rachel, is people are staying in jobs for about 3.9 years on average. Like, jobs are not your career anymore. Your career, I like to say, is the constellation of experiences that you consider to be your work. We don't have linear pathways. We don't have ladders. All of these old traditional concepts are gone. We're in a new work world, and it's time to wake up to the fact that your career belongs to you. So how are you managing your identity, your reputation, how you're seen across a spectrum of events that are going to take place in your lifetime? And that's the bigger question I have for people, because transitions are normal. They're not, one-offs or outliers anymore. People go through a number of jobs, a number of titles, and a number of employers in a lifetime. Your career is the bigger picture of all of that. And so that's my reframe. I want to challenge your audience.
I love that. That is such a beautiful visual. Thank you for that.
Yeah.
So, Sarabeth, this has been an amazing conversation. There's a lot to sit with and think about. I hope everybody runs out and grabs a copy of your book. There's so much kind of tangible stuff we can all pick up and do right away, which I love. Before we close, I just want to ask, is there anything that I haven't asked you that I'm missing out on hearing your answer to?
I feel like the book in many ways became more philosophical as much as a practical guide. And that surprised me because that wasn't my intention. I like to be a very tangible researcher because I want action tools. But a lot of the book is about deconstructing old paradigms of what careers are, what careers mean. Like there's a handful of other frameworks we haven't touched upon. So I'll just give a couple highlights. One is the notion of defining the difference between a little C and a big C career, because we bundle all kinds of expectations into the idea of a career. And really, your little C is about the traditional metrics and ways people define it, but your big C career is yours. And I've mentioned this self-definition of what a career means to you. So that's in the book. There's also this bigger idea of what state of career being are you in? I was really noodling in my head of I don't think I'm just in a career transition. I'm not just in a liminal space. I'm not on a path or off a path, a binary. And when I was sitting in that, I was like, what state of being am I really in my career? And then that generated, I think, 9 different types. And so there's a whole chapter of helping you articulate and get clear on where are you in your career with better language. And a fun side note on that is I turned that into a custom GPT called Glimmer. So if people want to access this free tool, I'm getting some of the most impactful, incredible stories of people that have used it. It is really helping them see themselves. So check out Glimmer. It's an AI career reflection tool on the state of career being you're in. And it has career personas. So you get a very custom type. There's 99 possibilities that will really describe where you are in your work and how to move forward.
That's amazing. Thank you so much. You have been so generous today with your time and your wisdom, and I can't wait for the world to experience your book.
Thank you, Rachel.
Thank you again. Oh, it's been a pleasure. Thank you for being on the show with me.
I loved it. And please go to morethanmytitle.com. People can find free resources and a lot more information there. I really want to provide tools and resources.
Thank you again. I hope you enjoyed my conversation with Dr. Sarabeth Bickerton. You can learn more about her at her website, morethanmytitle.com. Join me next week for another great episode of Modern Mentor. Until then, visit my website at leadabovenoise.com. You can follow Modern Mentor on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you listen. Thanks so much for listening and have a successful week. Modern Mentor is a quick and dirty tips podcast. And thanks to the QDT team, audio engineer Dan Firebend, director of podcasts Holly Hutchings, ad operations specialist Morgan Christensen, marketing manager Rebecca Sebastian, and our marketing contractor, Nat Hoops.